Boruto Uzumaki is dying and seemingly nothing can stop it, just as Kashin Koji warned Boruto. His strongest Rasengan, the Rasengan Uzuhiko, it's shattered and made useless because of Jura's Bijudama. Jura, the awakened Shinju of destruction, has finally arrived and he's not playing games. For the first time in 3 years, since Kawaki literally killed him, Boruto is staring death in the face yet again. Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 22 isn't just another battle. This is the moment where everything changes. The battlefield is soaked in dread. Boruto's on the ropes, and the monster at the center of it all might be unstoppable. Strap in because we're diving headfirst into the most terrifying chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex yet. So we open up the chapter with Jura immediately making his presence known, just as our heroes are recovering from the 2 major battles that have wrapped up. Sarada has defeated Ryu, but she is now too weakened to be of use, and Boruto has defeated Matsuri. The moment that Mitsuki declares that they will be taking down the remaining Claw Grimes, as Araya takes the Thorn Soul bulb produced by Ryu's body to Shinki to release him from that seal, Jura pops out the back of one of the Claw Grimes, and this is where it gets interesting. Jura takes one look at the battlefield, at all the people that are gathered there, and his eyes, they settle on Sarada for a moment, the girl who confronted her dormant feelings to achieve a higher form of power, a girl who embodies the emotion called love that Jura fears due to the unpredictability of it, and instead of killing her, he just flies away, which that speaks volumes. Previously, when a Thorn Soul bulb had been produced, following the defeat of awakened Shinju, Jura went right for it, nearly killing Boruto in chapter 12 and shooting Sarada in the arm, but this time his attention it is elsewhere. He's once again going after Boruto, who is in a deep conversation with Konohamaru. Konohamaru states that he can't believe how fast Matsuri is taken down, and Boruto reveals that the only reason that this was possible is because Matsuri was already severely wounded. Boruto drops a bombshell saying that had Matsuri been at full power, he wouldn't have been able to take her down as easily as he did, which somewhere Shikamaru is getting another gold plaque for his Super Shinobi of the Year award for that killer strategy he cooked up with Kashin Koji, which was to earn the trust of the awakened Shinju, get them to lower their guard, and then kill them when they see the attack not coming. Basically a sucker punch, which a reminder, you can't use Konohamaru destroying Matsuri, her arms and part of her body using a double giant Rasengan because she is off guard. Konohamaru rizzed up Matsuri, taking advantage of the feelings that Moegi has for Konohamaru, and he was almost able to take her down, but Boruto saved him and finished the job. However, Boruto saving Konohamaru, it came at a cost. Jura has now locked in on his prey, looking every bit like the apex predator that Kashin Koji described him to be. A Bijudama sniper bullet gets shot in their direction with the intention of just blowing them all up, but the aim, it is off a little, and Boruto knows right away that this is Jura and basically tells Konohamaru, grab Matsuri's Thorn Soul bulb and get out of here. Realizing that his time is short, Boruto goes into prep mode, throwing various flying Raijin markers around the area, while Konohamaru asks for confirmation if the Thorn Soul bulb can save Moegi, but Boruto, he's in full panic mode right now. He tells Konohamaru, take the Thorn Soul bulb, then grab Sarada and the others and get the hell out of there. Go all the way back to where you met the Sound Village ninja and wait for instructions, which likely means Boruto has another flying Raijin marker set up there as well that wasn't discovered, or he's banking on Mitsuki still having the one he found several chapters ago. When Konohamaru pushes back against Boruto, Boruto loses it yet again, shouting at Konohamaru to leave, and we see the effects of omnipotence rear its tragic head into the story. Had this been the Boruto who Konohamaru remembered before omnipotence, he wouldn't question what he was being told, realizing that this was a comrade who he could trust and just go along with it. However, due to omnipotence, Konohamaru's memories of Boruto, they aren't of the bubbly-eyed kid who used to complain about his father being too busy and who begged Konohamaru to teach him the Rasengan, but instead, Konohamaru remembers him as the disrespectful and ungrateful brat who Konohamaru never wanted on Team 7, but Naruto in chapter 58 of Boruto Part 1 basically said, let them train together because this kid's my student. In Konohamaru's mind, this is the guy who killed Konohamaru's idol Naruto, and you have to believe that some of the frustration that is coming through in Boruto's voice right now is because of this very fact. However, another Bijudama gets shot in the direction, and Boruto saves Konohamaru's life yet again and immediately buys time for him by teleporting behind Jura, slamming a Rasengan into him from behind. This is enough to seemingly send Jura backwards a bit and put him on a defensive. Yet, what little edge that the Flying Raijin gave Boruto, it's been negated now because Jura quickly shoots another Bijudama at Boruto and the battle, it heats up. Boruto dodges by teleporting away yet again and tries to get Jura in another uncomfortable position by appearing where Jura was about to land, but Jura blocks Boruto's sword attack with his literal finger. This, of course, is yet another of the many homages to Ikimoto's favorite manga of all time, Dragon Ball by the late great Akira Toriyama, where Goku blocked Future Trunks' sword attack with one finger. However, unlike Son Goku, who had zero killing intent, Jura, he means all business right now. But even someone like Jura, he's a man of culture, enough to the point he gives Boruto props for his Flying Raijin, but this line of dialogue, it should stand out to you. He talks about his bad habit that shows itself when he fights against strong people like Boruto, which is clearly a nod to how strong Himawari was, even though he was playing around with her. Jura says he gets excited, and the reason this should stand out isn't so much for a power scaling reason for Boruto and Himawari. It should stand out to you because this is exactly what Jigen said following the battle with Naruto and Sasuke. Jigen told Amato that playing around in fights was a bad habit of his when Amato is treating his body in episode 205 of the anime, which is crazy just given all that it took was 5 hits from a transformed Jigen to leave Naruto and Sasuke near death. The fact he was playing around means that he could have ended the fight even sooner had he wanted to. Jura appears to have that same personality, which is interesting since it shows a flaw in this all-powerful character who seemingly had zero weaknesses until now. Playing around on the battlefield with shinobi who use deception, all it takes is one moment and they can find an opening to take you down. Unfortunately for Boruto, that moment hasn't presented itself yet, but like any great shinobi before him, Boruto has to be patient and wait for that moment to show itself. The story then shifts over to Ada and Kashin Koji, deep in conversation, with Ada filling Kashin Koji in on everything that's happening, but Kashin Koji is clearly pissed off at Boruto. He tells Ada that Boruto doesn't have a 1 in a million chance at even defeating Jura as he is now, meaning that in the future, Boruto could have defeated Jura, but when Ada tells Kashin Koji that Boruto should just run away, we get another bombshell. Boruto cannot run away, and this is where we see yet another of the many weaknesses that Boruto's Flying Raijin Jutsu has, and they're all being exposed right now. For Boruto, teleporting extremely long distances using Flying Raijin is extremely hard. He can't do it on a whim like Minato or Tobirama. He needs to have time to concentrate, like we saw when Kawaki confronted him at the end of chapter 3 and at early chapter 4 to Blue Vortex. Boruto needed several moments to use the seal of concentration and then lock in on his marker to enter into the Ten Tails dimension. Against someone like Jura, Boruto won't have the time to escape, and Kashin Koji correctly states that that's what Boruto's plan is, and it's a foolish one. Boruto's waiting for the others to get far enough away and Boruto will then try to escape, but Kashin Koji declares this is useless, that they've lost, and it's not an over-exaggeration when you take all of this into account. Boruto's Flying Raijin has more weaknesses than just that, especially when compared to Minato and Tobirama, which I'm not going to cover here, but check my video All 6 Flying Raijin Users Explained to learn about the weaknesses that Boruto has compared to the other 5 users of the jutsu. Meanwhile, Jura tells Boruto, hey, I am indeed here to kill you. you because you know too much about me and all of my goals. Despite the fact that we awakened Shinju, we've only existed for a short period of time. And he says, I want the source of your intel, the name of the person who is helping you. But as this is going on, Boruto, he's in panic mode even further now, realizing his only hope at this moment is to use the Rasengan Uzuhiko, his strongest jutsu, because nothing else has worked. However, Jura hits Boruto with another question. He asks him, Boruto, what is love? Telling him that love is a weakness to mankind because it goes against the very survival instincts of humans. And one thing that is being missed here by Boruto is the way that he's looking at Jura. It just kind of showcases the fact that he's viewing these Shinju as trees, as objects. You can see it on his face. He doesn't see them as humans. And I bring that up for this reason. Shikamaru and Kashinkoji's initial plan to betray the Shinju, it spoke more so about the fact that humanity is something that all beings can feel to a certain extent. Even animals have feelings. Whether or not you want to say they have souls, that's another debate for another day. But I say that to say this, sometimes you make people monsters without actually intending to do so. And this whole get their trust and betray them for a moment, Ikimoto really makes you stop and think, are the shinobi truly the bad guys because they're playing with emotions the way that Konohamaru played with Matsuri's emotions, for example? So as we go forward with Boruto's interactions, just keep that in the back of your mind. Jura tells Boruto that it's pretty much his love for his friends that lead to Boruto coming here to face Jura, even though he knows it will be the end of him. It goes against everything logical. It confounds Jura. This makes even more sense when you go back to the last two chapters and you see how alarmed Jura was when he saw Matsuri impacted by Moegi's feelings for Konohamaru, and how hearing Matsuri's voice caused Konohamaru to pull back on the AP of his double giant Rasengan, which should have killed Matsuri, yet it didn't for that reason. Love got in the way in both of those examples. On the other hand, love can also be used to awaken strength to do impossible things, like we saw with Sarada's character, where she tapped into the Mangekyo Sharingan power and she outright demolished Ryu using that emotion, which in the Japanese version of the manga, Ryu calls her an emo girl obsessed with her love life. But in this moment, Sarada not only accepted her feelings that she had pushed away, but also understood that those feelings, they don't make her weak, but instead they can make her strong enough to beat people like Ryu as well in order to protect the very people she cares for, in this case Boruto. All of this is illogical and it drives Jura crazy. Someone extremely logical cannot grasp a feeling like love, which is why he wants answers. And this just further fits into one of the themes of the arc. Everyone focuses on the love aspect, but one of the sub themes of this arc is these Shinju are asking the question of what does it mean to be humanity, and that question, it is causing some lines to be blurred. There is a yearning to understand humanity when you get down deep into the weeds of these characters. However, Boruto's completely out of it because he realizes that while he needs to use Uzuhiko, he's unable to do so because his feet, they aren't on the ground, which once again, we're seeing one of the weaknesses of Boruto's ninjutsu arsenal being used against him, even without his enemy even knowing it. As he explained in chapter 12 of Two Blue Vortex, he needs to have both of his feet on the ground to gather chakra from the planet to use Uzuhiko and charge it at full power. And in order to do that, he needs an extended period of time, and based on his actions, it doesn't seem as if he can use shadow clones when using this jutsu, likely due to the high concentration that it requires to perform the jutsu. And with shadow clones, when you're performing tasks that require intense concentration, there is a limit to how many clones you can make. That's not my headcanon. This is shown multiple times in Naruto's manga, most famously in the Pain arc. One of the multiple times this is explained because clones can get distracted, but we'll obviously say that for another video. Now, Jura takes advantage of Boruto's situation to trap him in a wood-release jutsu to restrain him, and we see the genius of Boruto on full display here. He takes a negative situation and uses it to his advantage because he points out the lore behind the sword that fell to the ground, knowing that Jura's insane thirst for knowledge will get the better of him. Boruto states the sword on the ground that belongs to his master Sasuke, basically telling Jura that sword, it is precious to me. Jura takes the time to prod Boruto for more info about love and offers to not harm the sword in exchange for Boruto telling him where his source of information is located. located, but Boruto takes the time to indulge him by saying that love, it can be a weakness, but basically that Jura's lack of understanding about love proves his belief that Jura and the other Shinju aren't humans to be correct. And that's where we see Boruto hadn't been taking the time to have a conversation with Jura, but instead he was preparing the Uzuhiko in secret. And this is where we get a very interesting reveal, because once the Rasengan Uzuhiko has been made, Boruto is able to then combine it with the flying Raijin, which makes this jutsu under most circumstances more dangerous. And so after Boruto is able to tag Jura with it and Jura is hit with the effects of the jutsu, you think that you're home free, but as it is with all things Jura, what you see isn't truly what it is beneath the surface. And this, my friends, is where Boruto's downfall truly begins, because he gets a little too cocky. He starts patronizing Jura with his speech the same way he did to Code, telling him everything that it is that he's experiencing in this moment about how his equilibrium is messed up, but Jura isn't an idiot like Code. And so once he hears this information, Jura correctly starts making adjustments. He places his hand on top of his chest and does something with the chakra inside of his body, and he is able to nullify the effects of the Uzuhiko, which it should be worth noting on the official Naruto website in the database entry for the Uzuhiko, it talks about how it has a centrifugal force that is being used for this jutsu. When Boruto draws on the chakra of the Earth's planet, the Rasengan is something that uses centripetal force. So basically it is a reversal, if you will, a perfect counter to what we're seeing here. And there's a level of poetic symbolism here when you really get down into the weeds of what you're seeing. Jura is a tailed beast. Minato, Boruto's grandfather, created the Rasengan after seeing the Thorn the Five Tails prepare to use a Bijudama to kill Minato, Jiraiya, and the other two members of their team. Minato made that jutsu specifically for fighting tailed beasts. Boruto was using a variation of the Rasengan, a jutsu his grandfather made, and now a tailed beast was able to counter a more advanced version of Minato's jutsu, because again, Minato never completed the Rasengan. That is very poetic there. But in the aftermath of this, Boruto realizes that if this was an RPG, he suddenly had an aha moment where he realizes that Jura is that level 99 floor boss, and Boruto, unfortunately, is still stuck at level 70, and that's where our chapter ends off in what will seem like a very abrupt manner. But if you want to learn more about the many weaknesses to Boruto's flying Raijin jutsu compared to the other users of the jutsu, click here on the left to check out that video, all 6 flying Raijin users. Click here up top for this video from my One Piece channel, and click here on the right for this video from my Anime Explain channel.